You can see it in the data. 6 months, you pretty much bottomed out. In your first 6 months, you burn off like all the tire kickers.
Welcome to the Push Press Podcast,
Where gym owners learn to dodge bad advice, crush their competition, and actually make money doing what they love. Let's get after it. And this episode of the Push Press Podcast is brought to you by the third construction crew that has decided to come outside of our recording studio today. Never-ending work to be done in Orlando, apparently. Anyway, hey, in this episode, pretty excited to talk about, we got a guest host here, Miguel from Push Press. Wanted to come in and talk about some things he's seeing in the jiu-jitsu space. We've been working a lot more with jiu-jitsu studios. They call them studios? Academies. Jiu-jitsu, pardon me. Jiu-jitsu academies. And we're learning some pretty interesting stuff. And it's stuff that we also see in the data as well. And that's what we're going to kind of talk through, specifically on the horse that I have beaten to death for the millionth time, churn. Okay. So anyway, the cool thing about this all is I think the jiu-jitsu academies are kind of starting to level up. Like we're seeing a progression in the jiu-jitsu business acumen that we saw maybe in the CrossFit space 5-8 years ago.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. So now they're kind of like paying attention to churn. They're starting to understand more of the mechanics and mechanisms within their businesses. And why don't you just tee us up? Like what working with Checkmat, like what have you seen? What have they been talking about?
Well, we're working with a few of the Checkmat academies. You know, the biggest things that they're really looking into is trying to leverage data that we can provide them to make their business a little bit more successful, right? Churn is going to be an issue with most places, as we've seen in the CrossFit gyms, but they want to find ways to keep or retain their students outside of just, you know, the traditional belt tracking ways, which is great, but there's always going to be two different customers there.
Yeah. And so the interesting thing is, like, I've actually had this discussion with somebody recently, and when I mentally broke it down without having any of the data and with none of the anecdote either, because I haven't been in any of these academies that Miguel has, I was like, I feel like in the belt tracking world, they've got a natural churn reduction system built in, but my gut would tell me there's a huge avalanche when you get your first, every belt level. It's just like, cool, I finally got it. Now I'm going to go rock climb or whatever it is, right? And in the CrossFit world, because they don't have, most gyms don't have that type of a belt tracking, except the ones doing like level method type stuff. But in the CrossFit boot camp strength conditioning world, it's just a slow, gradual burn. And so my theory at the time was one has like a pretty strong early retention and then probably a drop off at every belt.
Yeah.
And then whereas CrossFit has this quick burn, like you can see it in the data, 6 months, you pretty much bottomed out. Like in your first 6 months, you burn off like all the kind of like tire kickers. Yeah. And then if you can get past 6 months, they're pretty stable. Like the rate of burn goes down, burn, churn, whatever.
Yes.
Does that seem right?
Yeah, it seems right. Like what I've seen, not only from speaking with a lot of different academies, but from my experience as well, right? I've been in jiu-jitsu for a year, but and a lot of my professors joke about this every time, is that when white belts get their blue belts, they disappear. They call it the blue belt blues.
The name for it.
There's a name for it, blue belt blues. So literally it's like, you know, for some people it takes a couple of years for them to get their blue belt, and they've achieved that. That's a big milestone because they're not getting pounded anymore. But once they get their blue belt, either they disappear because like, oh, I achieved something. I'm gonna take a quick break. We'll see if I come back. But you know, you've got different people who, when they're solely into finishing it all the way through, like in there.
Yeah. There's something to this concept of milestoning where there's a mental letdown when you get there, if you will. Like, okay, I made it.
Yeah.
And you can then reevaluate what you're doing, or if you know, like I've hit my goal that I told myself I would do. Now I can leave. Whereas in the CrossFit world, that doesn't exist. So I think one of the cooler things we have as a business is we can look across different industries and see these trends, right? And so that's kind of what we're here to talk about. Because why don't you talk about your experience, like moving forward, like what Checkmat's seeing and what they want to do?
Well, in one of the academies that I talked to, you know, one of the things that they want to actually find a way to incorporate is some kind of committed club, like what's there in CrossFit, right? Part of that is to keep that engagement going like each month, right? With the belt process, especially traditional gyms, you're getting promotions maybe every quarter, like either a stripe or a belt, quarter, every 6 months, a year, just depends on the academy that's doing it. But they want to find something to keep them really engaged in between, especially for the people who like maybe aren't competing, right?
Right.
Like for me, I'm 100% blinders on competing and doing everything jiu-jitsu. But I do kind of like the aspect of a committed club, because sometimes, even as an adult, we're sucker for little things. Like shout out to Checkmat Academy for the dope stickers right here. I want a sticker.
What does it say?
The astronaut, and then the kind of like the Barbie sticker right there for Academy.
Were these for a committed club?
That's what they're going to be doing for their committed club
so these
if
are
they run
trial
it.
run.
Yeah, but they showed me the
dope.
stickers, and I was like, dude, I want a sticker.
Dude, these are like retro 1980s.
So
Those are sick.
And in the committed club that we've seen in the CrossFit gyms, you would think it was the kids that were more into the little stickers, but it's adults.
I still can't get over this sticker thing.
Adults go crazy over stickers.
Stickers and water bottles and computers for some reason. It's a thing. Okay, so let's skip back. Okay, so what I actually want to do in this episode is marry the idea that CrossFit can learn from Jiu-Jitsu and Jiu-Jitsu can learn from CrossFit. So let's skip back. Belt tracking.
Sounds good.
How can this be deployed in CrossFit gyms, and what do they see in terms of like the churn reduction?
Well, I think the way they could use or utilize it in jiu-jitsu gyms is really got to use the data, right? That's there, especially checking in. I've been to some academies where they don't check people in at all. They just assume people will show up and they'll be there when they get their promotions or whatnot, right? But if you've got a system that you can use to track the check-in data, the engagement, how many times students are checking into classes, if you can combine all that data, you could have your committed club right there. Keep them engaged while they're earning their stripes or their belts. And especially for, you've got your students that may not be concerned about stripes or belts because they've got a higher goal that they're trying to achieve.
We're going to flip flop it then, because I was asking what CrossFit can learn from Jiu-Jitsu, but you answered the other. It's fine. It's fine. We're talking about now what Jiu-Jitsu can learn from CrossFit.
Yeah.
Right. So belt systems in place. They probably have big drop-offs every 18 months or 12, whatever, when you hit your belt. Committed Club comes in. Committed Club is a process where you're rewarding people monthly with a token prize, some kind of recognition, some type of slap on the back, if you will, high five, for being a part of a committed, movement towards what you're trying to do.
Yep.
Committedly moving towards your goals, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And in the CrossFit world, do you know the numbers we're seeing on the Committed Club?
I haven't seen all the numbers with the Committed Club, but what CrossFit could use from Jiu-Jitsu is setting long-term goals, right? Like, I don't know if you want to call it a PR or whatever, but have something set already depending on the different movements or what you're teaching at your...
This essentially is what Level Method does, right? So they put a ranking system around every movement or every facet in the functional fitness world. And then it's like, how competent are you at that?
Yeah.
There was another system years
the
ago.
belt and the stripe system.
There was another system years ago that was very similar to this, but I think it's defunct now. We tried to do it at my gym. It was really cool, actually, where it was like you test into, and there's thresholds for every movement.
Yeah.
So, and they actually had, and I'm sure I haven't studied Level Method as much, but it's probably the same, where it's like, until you qualify for a certain level, like muscle ups are out of the equation. Like if you can't do a certain threshold for pulling, upper body pull.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same thing. Like with jiu-jitsu, like I'm a blue belt. There are certain moves I'm not allowed to do. They're not going to teach me how to do that because I could probably hurt my training partner or myself. But there's so much ways that both different industries can learn from each other and help each other out. by minimizing churn and increasing engagement.
Yeah. And I think this is actually a really cool aspect of what we will be driving forward is like using the data across, we'll learn from every industry we work with and start pushing, the right ideas into the right gyms, or at least giving people the concepts that are happening. That's how we're going to marry the two.
Yeah. I mean, and the tools are there. It's just really like using what's there and finding ways to exploit it. Is that the right word?
Yeah.
To the benefits.
Exploit is a strong word, but in general, like what I profess is you want to understand what you want to get for your clients, and you want to manufacture that into the business. So if you know that, like in jiu-jitsu, if you know they need to be around for a certain amount of time to get to the skills required to be a blue belt, you also want to manufacture things within the month, like shorter time frames, to keep them along that path to get them to that year.
Yeah, and just to copy on that, there's different people that are there for the stripes and for the belts, and then there's people that's there for the art of it.
Yeah, I would say in general, probably 10% just don't give a shit about one or the other, but somewhere in it, like you kind of care. You kind of still care.
You still kind of care. I mean, like I talked about earlier, like I was geeked out.
Your blinders on to compete, and you got stickers and got excited, right? Like there's something there. Okay, cool. So in general, like, and the cool thing is like we're working on a belt tracking software in Push Press now.
Yes, we are.
And that would actually allow a CrossFit gym to do a belt tracking style motion in their gym.
They'll be able to do the belt tracking. They can do the committed club.
Yeah, we wouldn't call it belt tracking, obviously, in a CrossFit gym, but like you can do a level tracking or whatever.
Yeah.
Give people long-term goals, and we already have the committed club, which we're refining right now, and that allows the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gym to do short-term
goals,
incentivization.
Yes, for sure.
Yep. So the cool thing we have here is like we're kind of marrying both worlds, and hopefully we can fight churn in the short term and the long term and provide healthier gyms for both.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay, wrapping up, is there anything that you want to leave the parting words with?
Hey man, thanks to the Academy for providing us some data and really showing us the ways that they've done their business, and looking forward to helping them grow even better.
That's great. So I guess my question to you guys is if there's any other short-term or long-term churn reducing tools that you found in your gym that aren't your gym, studio, academy, whatever you want to call it, that aren't specifically level tracking in the long term or committed club in the short term, we would personally like to know, because maybe we can productize that and make it more efficient for you to run that and your others. So shoot us an email, podcast@pushpress.com. Let us know if you found anything that's really effective in terms of reducing churn, and we might feature you on an upcoming episode of the podcast. See you guys later.
See you guys.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Push Press Podcast, where we help gym owners, entrepreneurs, and fitness enthusiasts thrive with actionable insights, inspiring stories, and strategies for growth.
Don't forget to follow the show to stay updated on new episodes. And if you're ready for more, join our free Facebook community for gym owners. Check the show notes for the link, and we'll see you next time. Keep raising the bar for your business and community.